So that's kind of the glossary, just as another thing for you to use. If you want to use Powtoon and you're interested in getting a quick overview of what each person found out about their own area, this is now here on our class Moodle, so you could always come here and take a look at it. But let's see what it actually does. So what I'm going to do is, on mine here, I'm going to build a slide. It's going to get very crowded, that basically incorporates all the various things that you guys just looked at. And I'm going to have each one of you do a quick explanation of what that category is as I add something in, and then I'll go through some of the specifics or some of the things to know about them. So the first two I'll actually do. I had already entered them in the glossary. First one is scenes. Scenes would be the closest to if you're used to. I keep going back to PowerPoint because I think that's something a lot of people have some familiarity with. Scenes is like the slide templates. So you can pull up like a title slide, or one that already has a title box and a content box, or that already has a particular background. So scenes are like a completed slide that you can just pull right up. So they've got a bunch of categories that are by type of things. So like situations, signing a contract. And boom, I click on that, and now I've already got a slide here that has all of these things already built in, animated, everything, and I could then just go in and change the text or move things around or change the color of the background. So they're basically a way for you to very quickly get a bunch of content on the screen. You can also save your own scenes. So especially if you're doing a video where you're going to want to have sort of the same look in multiple slides, you could save it as sort of a background scene or a basic scene, and then just pull that into a new slide and kind of customize it from there. So maybe you build kind of a set of backgrounds of a classroom and a desk and a chalkboard or something, and you want to be able to come back to that quickly without rebuilding it. You can just save that as a scene, and then those will show up under your scenes here. So that's what scenes are. And then right underneath it is backgrounds. And backgrounds in a way are kind of similar, except that the background is just a single thing that is in the entire frame. You can't move it. You can't have it do stuff. You can't, whatever. It's just going to be there. But you can, basically decide what's going to be in the background. Anything from just picking a straight color, which sometimes is the best thing to have because it's the simplest and the easiest to build on top of. But they also give you options of, premium images. So, I don't know, you want an image of kids or somebody hula hooping, you can put that in. But just remember, that's going to be then in the background of your entire slide. So a lot of times it might be better to keep your backgrounds on the simpler side and build on top of that, rather than making the background too busy. But again, they've got a bunch of different options, different categories. They've got some nice color backgrounds that split colors or fade between colors or kind of pre-divided up into zones. So just a way to get your backgrounds in place. So I'm going to pick kind of a neutral background to build off of, and we'll go from there. All right. Oh, and you can also upload your own. In a lot of these categories, you can put your own content in there too. So if you've got a photograph you'd like to put there, an image, a logo, whatever. All right, so let's work our way around the room. So text, very quickly. What is text about?
So text allows you to really put words on your slide. The one text option that I thought would be most useful is text elements. You click on that, like those word bubbles you can kind of place on a slide and text in there. So I think that flows good with the character options and trying to bring some life to your slides. On the bottom is like infographics, like the badges and like different shapes and sizes and things you might want to put text in. Those can come in handy as well, depending on what the content or theme is of your video. video. Sums it up.
Yeah, and on all of these, any of the text on any of these badges is editable. So, it's not just pulling an image in there, it's setting up the background of the image along with the text. So here I've added this text cloud in. So obviously I can just click on the text and change it. All right. So you can do that. You can then move the text within the graphic element that's behind it. Any of these elements, sort of common to most of these things, is being able to move them around. So just grabbing something and moving it. You can usually resize. So what you do is look for handles. If it's a graphic image, you've got handles that you can pull in the corners and on the edges. If it's a text, you can just stretch the box out. It'll automatically do the height depending on how much text is there. So those are some options. You can format the text color. You can format the text size. So there's options there. If you've clicked on something and you see the little gear, that will open up other options. So you can even do text justification. You can bold, you can italicize, you can underline, do all those sorts of things. We'll get down to some of the lower options a little down the road. And then you also, with most things, have the option to rotate them. So if you go over the little rotational arrow, that allows you to spin items. So you really can make any of these things the right size, the right color, the right shape. The one where you see two triangles facing away from each other, that's a flip. So that will reflect the thing over its vertical axis. So a lot of times you might want to turn something so it's looking a different direction or facing a different direction. That's what the flip does. And swap is actually kind of a handy feature, because what swap will do, if you change your mind, if you hit swap, then what you can do is find a new thing and it will replace the thing that's there with the new thing. And what's nice about that is that it'll try to keep most of the formatting in place. So rather than you having to start from scratch and drag a new thing in and then resize it and then rotate it and then move it, when you use a swap function, and that's going to be pretty much on anything in here, swap will just take what's there, get rid of it, and put the new thing where the old thing was without you having to do much in the way of resizing it. Okay? So yeah, other than that, text I think is pretty self-explanatory in terms of what it does and so on. So that gets you text. All right, characters.
All right. So there's like little different packs of people, and they're all kind of related. Like The Office, the top one was the one I used. And you pick your little person, and you can decide what they're gonna do. Like they can wave, they can say hello, they can type, sit, all that stuff, and you can swap their direction. I don't know. It was a little overwhelming.
There's a lot, although it's a lot of repetition. So, like you said, every character is going to have a range of emotions or actions. And you saw in the video that I built for you, some of them were like throwing their hands up in the air, and that's like the excited one, or they were angry. And so it kind of builds in animations. So like I'm going to throw in this person explaining. So yeah, again, you've got the swap function. So if you want to put a different character in, you can. The pose button, that just brings up all those options. So once a character's in there, excuse me. Yeah, sorry. Once a character's in there, you can change what its behavior is, what mood it's in. You can rotate the character or flip the character back and forth. And again, the settings, the gear guy also brings up the swapping, the posing, the flipping. And the animation, is going to start showing up on a lot of this stuff. That is what the character or what the thing does. And you always have the options of turning the animation off. So in some cases, you may not want the thing to move. You want it just to be there. So you can say no animation. You can have it do its animation loop a certain number of times. So maybe you want the character to wave once and then stop. Or you can have it play continuously in a loop. So anything that can be animated will have those options. So I'm just going to have this woman loop her huffing pose. All right. And then again, you can resize the characters. I should point out any of these objects you can drag off of the frame. So if you just want to see a character's head, you can have the rest of their body actually off of the frame. That is allowable. You can rotate the characters, so you could make them look like they're lying down or reclining or whatever. All right. And yeah, and then there's just a whole range of characters in different categories, and some of them at work, and some of them are professionals, and some of them are at home, and some are family. And so, they just give you a lot of things to do. Okay. All right, on to props.
So props is there's like a bunch of objects that you can use, and you can animate them just like you can animate the characters. Like it's sort of repetitive, to be honest with you, of characters, except instead of people, it's stuff.
Yeah. So again, this environment is all meant to be kind of drag and drop. So they've given you all of this pre-built content that you can choose from. And in pretty much every category, and a lot of the categories, you can add your own as well. So images and things like that. If something's not there that you want, there's usually a way for you to add that something in. And not every object has an animation, but if it does, it's the same as the characters. You can loop the animation. You can have the animation happen once. You can do whatever. You can flip them. You can resize them. You can rotate them. Right? I'm not sure what's going on here, but this woman's pretty unhappy about that hamburger.
I accidentally put a puppy in a woman's face.
Oh.
I didn't realize.
So, all right. So there's your props. On to shapes.
Shapes is pretty self-explanatory. You can just insert a lot of shapes. What I thought was really cool is that they have these things called call to action, and they're like little logos to connect to social media, YouTube, or contact information.
Mm-hmm.
You can do basic shapes, animated shapes, image frames, overlays, charts. It reminded me like of PowerPoint and Word, all the stuff that you can insert.
Yeah, this would be kind of like clip art in a way, between this and the props. But yeah, these so say YouTube, and the nice thing is, and here's sort of another little thing you can do, is on some of these objects you can actually add a link, and you can make the link clickable. So like I've clicked on that little play icon on the YouTube one, and when I go to its settings, I have a link option. So you can actually make these animations interactive where they can be looking at a screen, and if they click on something, it actually triggers going to that link. So it can be a little bit more interactive in that context. But yeah, again, other than that, I mean, shapes are shapes. So it's just another graphic element, all the basic shapes like squares and triangles and all that kind of stuff. But then they do have the animated shapes that, again, introduce some sort of motion into things. And you can then turn those animations on, off, have them loop, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So a lot of the same there. Okay, on to images.
Yeah, images are pictures, so you can upload your own image, obviously, or sort through a number of
Premium
yeah,
images.
premium images. You can search for various hilarious scenes.
Yeah. Now, so one thing to realize here is that the difference between the images and the backgrounds, if you add something as an image, you can resize it. So say you want to make it look like there's a poster hanging on a wall, you can drop in, a photo, put a frame around it from the shapes, and make it look like a poster on the wall. If you're in backgrounds, that image covers the whole background and you can't really do anything to it. It's just there. But otherwise, they function very similarly. So this would be the place where if you have something specific that doesn't show up in their catalog of images already, this would be the place where you could bring an image in and make it part of your scene. All right, and then same things. You can flip it, you can swap it, you can crop images. That's one option you don't have on some of the other things. So, just like you can crop a photo, if you don't want to use the whole image, you can get rid of parts of it. And then the same options in terms of settings. You can add a link to an image. So again, it can be clickable and so on. All right, almost there. Videos.
So videos are videos that you can put into your Powtoon slides. So there's my videos where you can add your own that you may have created and put that there. Premium, the videos are just kind of like this premium videos, I guess you consider them. I don't know. Video footage, when you open that one, it's kind of like real life scenes. So there's like a tornado, that's one. There's like someone using a shopping cart as one of them, like a handshake is one of them. There's a bunch of different ones for that one. Marketing is more kind of like graphs and things like that. People kind of thinking at a table. What are some other ones over here? Numbers kind of going through. There's one with emojis and hearts and likes, a clock. And then the urban and nature videos is urban and nature, so nature and city scenes and scenes from space and kind of things like that that you can put in.
Yeah. And then another thing that I believe is true is that videos also are like the backgrounds. They will map onto your entire frame. So you can't actually resize a video to only take up part of a frame. So either use it as background behind your scene, or if you just want a frame to show a video, then that would be the only element in the frame. Now you could add text on top of it, so it would be a way to subtitle or title a video if you upload your own video. But that's one way that videos are different than images, is that they function more like the background than they do than the images do. If you want to get rid of the video, then you basically have to go back to backgrounds and pick a different background, and then that'll remove the video since it's not really a separate clickable object. Okay, one more. Well, yeah, one more that I'll do, but one more that I had you do, which was sound. Now, sound is if you're getting kind of bored with the sort of all of these are the same ideas with different things, sound is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Go for it.
It's pretty, also, I thought, from what I saw, self-explanatory to the extent that in sounds you can either add music or you can add voiceover or both. You can have both at the same time. You can also have sounds or voiceover for one slide, or you could have it like if you chose I'm sure a voiceover as well, but a song and also you could do throughout your entire presentation. And there are just a ton. Like I was just looking mostly at all the different sounds that they have. There are tons of different sounds.
Yeah. So the issue here is the music files are designed to play underneath your entire Powtoon. So if you're selecting one of the music options, it will automatically layer it underneath the whole Powtoon. And when you do that, this sound control box will pop up, which kind of gives you control over the sound. So you can do certain things with the music. You can swap it out. You can change the volume, the overall volume. That's something to be careful of, especially if you have voices going. But then in addition are voiceovers. And voiceovers are where you have the option of either adding a voiceover over your entire Powtoon or simply adding a voiceover per slide. For me personally, I tend to go the per slide route for voiceovers, because if you if you do it for your whole Powtoon and then go back and edit your slides and some of them change lengths, you'll have to re-record the whole voiceover because the voiceover won't sync up with your slides anymore. So I find it more useful to add voiceovers per slide. And you add them right here. If I want to add a voiceover, I click on Add Voiceover, and I can actually right here through my computer hit record and record the voiceover right at that moment. Or you can upload, if you've got audio files from other locations, you can upload them from there as well. And you can also upload your own music. So if you've got your own music that you would like to add, you can upload that as well. So obviously that's a little different because you're not resizing it and dragging around and flipping it and things like that, but that gives you the element of audio over your video. So the only other category of stuff here is what they call specials. And these are mainly themes of content. And a lot of them are seasonal. So they have Thanksgiving and Halloween and elections and African tribes and Memorial Day. Kind of a random grouping of stuff here. Events. So these are just, I mean, again, it's mainly props and characters and other types of things that sort of are more by themes than in any of the categories. So it's just another place for them to put content that you can pull from to create your slides. All right. So that's what I call what the stuff is. So those are all the things you can build. And as you can see, they pretty much cover the bases. You got characters, you've got things, you've got shapes, you've got music, you've got backgrounds, you've got text. So all of those things, you can really kind of build whatever visual you want. Keep in mind your Gestalt principles and what we looked at in video last week. It can be real easy with a program like this to go overboard and start throwing every little bell and whistle in there. Remember, if you're trying to instruct, keep the focus on the thing the students are supposed to focus on, because as we all know, the minute you throw something else in the image, there's going to be a student who's going to fixate on that thing and not pay attention to the thing you want them to pay attention to. So just a word of caution with any video sort of an element. So let me then just talk a little bit briefly about the animation piece and a couple of things about moving between slides. So a lot of these things, as we saw, will animate themselves. They have little movements they can do. But you can also do, for almost all of the objects, there is an option called A to B. So let me show you what this looks like, because this is maybe the most confusing thing about this program. So what happens is if you click A to B on an object, so I've clicked on my lady here, I click A to B. Now what I have on the screen is two different versions of her. And you'll notice as you drag one of them around that there is a dotted arrow connecting one of them to the other one. That's showing you the path of the motion. So that's showing you where the character will start and where the character will end. It applies to rotation as well. So if you rotate a character, as they move, they will also rotate too. What the program is doing, what the technical word for it is tweening. In animation, tweening is where you set a beginning and an end, and then the software calculates all of the in-between positions for that thing to get it from point A to point B. So you tell it where you want the character to start and where you want the character to end, and the character will then follow that motion path. All right, make sense? Now, in the timeline, the other piece of this is when that motion happens. So we haven't really talked about the timeline yet, but everything that you've put into your slide has a place on the timeline. That object won't appear in your slide until the timeline reaches the point where that object is told to appear. So if you look at my example up here, I've clicked on my character, And you'll see she's not coming in until the 6th second of this slide. So if this slide is playing, there's nothing there, nothing there, nothing there. And then when I get to the 6th second, she appears. Okay, so, and it's moving all over the place. This is going to look really weird. So if you want that to change, what you need to do is drag where the character begins. So the blue bar represents where the character comes into your scene. And you can also drag the other end to determine where the character is going to exit your scene. So you don't have to have every object appear all through the whole slide. You can have things appear and disappear. On top of that, now that I've done an A to B, there's a darker blue region. That darker blue region determines how long it will take for my character to move from point A to point B. Now, the one thing that Powtoon does not let you do is adjust the start of the animation, the movement. The character will start moving the minute they appear. You can adjust how long it will take them to get there, but it doesn't allow you to have the character appear, wait a couple seconds, and then start moving. If you want to do that, you have to fake it by putting in a couple of different characters, have one be there static, have it disappear when the other one appears, and then have that second one move. So there's ways around it, but that's just something to be aware of. All right, so that's the A to B and kind of when a character comes in and out. The other thing that most of these have, the little ramp up that happens at the beginning and the little ramp out that happens at the end, that's the effect that happens when the character appears. So right now, it's a right enter effect, meaning that the character will appear to kind of slide into the frame from the right or to the right. I can change that by clicking on that and picking a different effect. Up, down, fade. I can add a hand. If you noticed in my video I showed you at the beginning, at the very end, hands came up and pulled the object down. So you can actually have a hand reach up and move something. So that's a transitional moment. You can add a sound just to that moment. So if you want a pop or a zing or a click or a buzz or a whatever. But they give you, those are your in and out effects. You can also turn that off, in which case the object will just, boom, just appear on the screen. So that disappears then. So you also have that option in terms of effects. So even once you've got the character on the screen, there's a lot that you can do. So right now she's designed to appear right at the 3rd second. She immediately starts doing the movement across the screen and angling. All my other objects right now come in the 6th second and fade in. And then she's there, and then she has a 1 second sliding off the screen. So all of that is determined by what happened down here in the timeline. You'll notice under the timeline will be little markers for each of the objects. So you can either click on an object or click on its marker, and it'll make that object the one that you're then controlling. So maybe I want the burger to be there from the beginning, can drag that one back. Maybe I want the picture to be there from the beginning but then disappear. So you can start moving around where all of the objects are. So those two are there from the beginning. There she is, the picture went away, that appears, and so on. All right, so a lot of tweaking that you can do. 2 other quick things, and then I'm just going to give you some time to kind of play around with this on your own. Again, with objects, there is also an arrangement option. This is the layering of objects. So if you've got, scenery in the background and you want your character to be in front of that scenery, and right now the scenery is in front of your character, you go to the arrangement tab and you can move things forward and backward, or all the way to the back, or all the way to the forward, all the way to the front. So that helps you whenever you've got objects that are in the same plane, in the same space, how are those objects stacked? So that's another option. And then the last thing is your actual slide. It'll default to 10 seconds long, but you can change that. So if you need a slide to be longer, you can add seconds, or you can remove seconds from a slide. All right? So you can do that as well. Oh, sorry, and then the last thing is transitions. The minute you have more than one slide, you've got a transition. All you do is click on it. It brings up all of your transition options, and you simply tell it which one you want to do. And then when it goes from the first slide to the second, it'll use that transition. All right. So that is a very quick and dirty kind of introduction to Powtoon. I know a lot of you have already been clicking away furiously, but what I would suggest is, I don't know, take 20 minutes or so, and maybe try to build a 2 or 3 slide presentation. Play around with the scenes, animate a couple of characters, throw some music in, and just kind of get a sense for building a show, put in a couple of transitions. And then we'll wrap this up and talk about homework for next week and get to go home. Nice thing is you can't really mess anything up, so feel free to just put stuff in there. You can always delete a slide if it gets way out of hand. I can tell some people are already having way too much fun with it. Oh, and I should also point out, maybe you figured this out, but the little triangle underneath allows you to play the slide. So if you want to see the slide in action. That's actually kind of appropriate music for her facial expressions. It's kind of, I don't know, this hamburger thing is getting kind of ominous. I've got to build a whole story around this somehow. That sounded interesting.
was gonna say.
All right. I've actually been hearing a remarkably low level of frustration. So, are there questions, issues? In the past, it looks like they've definitely keep improving this. In the past, there have been some weird, buggy things that we've run into, but I'm noticing that some of those we like for a while. Randomly slides, everything would show up on the slide bunched up into the top left-hand corner, even if it wasn't supposed to be there yet, and then it would suddenly spread out across the slide. But it seems like a lot of that stuff they've gotten to be a lot more stable now. So, but questions, comments? Does this seem like a tool that you would want to use? You don't have to say yes. You could be like, no, I hate animation. It's awful. But it's not the only one. Powtoon is certainly one of the more commonly used ones, but there are some other animation programs, online programs out there as well. But they all basically function the same way, where they give you a library of things that you can add into content and then sequence that all together. So before we leave this, just sort of one final thing is once you've got your masterpiece and it's done, you obviously want people to be able to see it. It will auto-save, by the way, but up in the top right-hand corner is the preview and export button. What that will do is sort of immediately show you your entire movie from start to finish, all the slides, transitions, everything, so you can kind of verify that everything is working the way it's supposed to work, and so on. And then you can, from there, you can export it. And what this allows you to do is it gives you a bunch of different options. You can keep it on like your own little, it's like having a little YouTube channel, but it's on Powtoon. So you can create your own local page if you've got a lot of Powtoons you want people to see. Or you can upload the video to Facebook, to YouTube, to Vimeo, to a couple of other things. So if you've got a YouTube account, you can actually upload your video straight from here, straight to YouTube, and then host it there. Or if you want just the raw, whoops, that's not what I wanted to do. If you want just the raw file saved to your computer, now watch, I'll probably just crash the whole thing. Yeah, probably. Anyways, it gives you some options for basically downloading the finished movie file. And that would be if you want to, I don't know, upload it directly to a website, or you want to put it on a Moodle or something like that. Although you can also like put it on YouTube and then embed it from there. So, so that's kind of the final step once you're done is getting it out. And they do make it pretty easy to, there we go, it's back. They make it pretty easy to finish up the project and get it out of this and into its finished form. Yeah.
If you download it in one format or another, can you go back and re-download it in another format, or is it like once you download it, it's like you're done with that?
No, it's like saving a file. You can, so you could upload it to YouTube and download it as a MP4 if you wanted to save it locally. So yeah, you can come back and re-export. And obviously, if you make changes to it, then you would want to re-export it anyway. And also, Powtoon, like a lot of these sites, also has a pretty extensive help menu. Anywhere you see question marks, they've got tutorials. You can hire a Powtoonist to make videos for you. They have POW tips. I think they're going overboard with the POW, but and they have a help center too. So just basically like user manual kinds of stuff. So, but I honestly, I think and you've probably seen this, they do a pretty good job of making it pretty immediately accessible without having to learn too much technical stuff. Probably the A to B animation and tweening is the most technical part of it. And getting things to appear and disappear where you want them to. But, you know, this is even something where if you wanted to get your own account, and honestly, for a teacher, I forget, I get 50 or 100 users I can have and I think it's $100 a year. So it's not that expensive. So this could even be a tool that you want to have your students use. If you're somebody and you have your students creating presentations, something like Powtoon might be a fun way for your students to create a presentation that's a little different than just writing a report and presenting it and stuff like that. All right, so any other questions, comments, concerns? We're good, we're good, we're good. I'm good. You're good, you're good. Anybody here a SpongeBob fan?
Of course.
Do you know the "You're Good" reference? I am a SpongeBob fan. My students all know that. I bring up SpongeBob quite a bit. I've got a big poster of the Jellyfish Jam Band in my office. And I even have a blow-up Sandy Cheeks and a blow-up Patrick Star also. So, all right. So now that you're in my Powtoon class, you know, you will, like I said, you will have access to this. So if you want to use Powtoon to create videos for your Moodle, you've now got it available. And you can create those videos and download them or host them on YouTube and bring them into your Moodle and so on. So it's a tool that will be available for you at least, you know, through the rest of the semester. And I'll probably leave you guys in there even through the rest of the year, because even with my spring class, I think I still have enough student space that I can leave you guys on this through the year. So if you want to take advantage of it through the school year, I'll leave that class set up and leave you in there so you'll have access to the content. Hopefully actually by next week, somebody let me know if that thing that's telling you there's a countdown to the premium content goes away, because my understanding is since you're under my account that you should have access to the premium content all the time.
Are you set up as a premium user? Or?
Yeah, if you have an educational account, that gives you access to all their content. So, all right, so let's wrap it up and talk next week. There's still a fair amount of stuff that was due in previous weeks that is still not quite there yet. So I'm trying to back off a little bit on the amount of new stuff I'm adding in just to not keep piling it on. But we do have to keep moving ahead, obviously. So implied in this is just to make sure that you're caught up on previous things. Like, for example, the images, the forum from a couple weeks ago where you're supposed to post an image and get some commentary on that. I think only 4 people had posted their images so far. So just don't get behind on those types of things, just so you're not adding work on top of work. But for this week, in preparation for next week, there is a quick article about instructional audio. I figured rather than having you read it during class time, I'd have you read it ahead of time, just so you're prepared for next week's discussion. Moodle project video. So going back to the Moodle project requirements, which we went over way back in the dark ages, back in class number 1 or something. One of the requirements that I would like to see, and I don't have many of these for the Moodles, but one of them is that each of your sections or lessons or topics or however you're conceiving of those 5 things should have a quick, less than 1 minute video of some sort that just acts as an advanced organizer for whatever that topic is going to be. It's good educational practice. It'll mean students using your site can start there, get a quick sense of what it is they're going to be doing or what topic they're going to be looking at, or just kind of prime the pump in terms of getting them ready to go through the content. If you're thinking of it that you're using the Moodle to show students, then it would be a way for you to just play a quick video rather than you having to stand in front of the class and go through the same things. So for next week, just do at least one of those. So we're looking for less than a minute's worth of video for one of your sections. You can certainly be working on the rest of them too if you would like. There is, I've set this up in a forum so that people can post them and then get feedback on them. So this is the information: short, less than 1 minute introductory video. For this week's work, create one of those intro videos and share it to this for feedback. You can use whatever video or animation software or platform you want. You could Powtoon it. You could use iMovie and film yourself. You could, if you've got some other movie maker or whatever. So whatever format you think is going to work best for your Moodle. If you want to be a talking head, if you want to animate a talking head, whatever, that's up to you. Host the video on YouTube or somewhere like that so that in your post you can post either a link to the video or embed it, now that I've shown you how to embed videos, so that other people can see it. And then just like you did with your image, just a couple of little background to go along with that post. What's the subject material? In other words, what's the topic you're covering for that Moodle section? What did you use to create the video? So just describe what software you used or what process you went through. Did you do live action or animation? Maybe a little bit about why you chose one over the other. And then maybe a little bit sort of incorporating some of the design principles that we've talked about through through graphic design and video design, and sort of what you did to incorporate those ideas to make your video as effective as possible. And then as always, the point of this is to present something so that you can get feedback. So come back once people have posted some things and provide some commentary on it. And then, as I say, you may certainly work on creating more than one video, but for this assignment, just post one. So if you like to production line and get all of your intro videos done all at once, be my guest. But in terms of this, you just have to post one of them. So that's really the biggest piece of next week. As I said earlier, just keep working on your Moodle projects. There's nothing specific, but you should have a good enough idea now of the kinds of things that Moodle can do, and you should have been able to think about your topic enough that you can start refining your structure, get your layout set, keep creating content and adding that in, whether that's pages or activities or other types of things. Particularly now that we've talked about graphics and videos and animation, if that's going to be a piece of your final project, start putting that stuff in. And then the last thing here is really from last week, just because I noticed not everyone had posted yet, but make sure that you do get a post up from last week's forum. You were supposed to post a question and then have other people respond to it and then get these conversations going. So if you haven't yet posted, make sure you post, or if you have more to contribute to the conversations, just keep following up on that. So the only real new thing is the making of the video. Reading the article, but reading the article will take you 5 minutes. And then, just like I said, if it would be helpful if you're not caught up on everything to date, maybe just go back through the Moodle and check all of the forums, all of the assignments, and just make sure that you've submitted everything that needs to be submitted at this point, mainly for your own sanity, just so that you don't get 4 or 5 weeks down the road from now and suddenly have 8 weeks worth of stuff that you've got to do all at once. So I try to pace it so that there's not a ton each week, but if you could start getting behind. All right, so that's basically it. Our main topic next week is going to be audio, which is the one probably nearest and dearest to my heart since I am an audio engineer and a musician. So we'll talk a little bit about audio. We're going to take a look at a program called Audacity, which if you don't know is sort of the de facto, if you need an audio program, it's free and it works on any computer. So we'll look at Audacity and talk about some audio principles and just keep plugging on. All right. Anything else for the good of the order? 8 minutes early.
Yeah.
Which is really 18 minutes early because we're supposed to go to 9:40. Shh, don't tell anyone. So, yay, we get out of here a little early tonight. So, enjoy. Be in touch if you've got questions.
Thank you.
Have a good week.
I'm going to do my best. My daughter turned 13 on Tuesday. I'm now the dad of a teenager.
Good luck.
Her birthday is tomorrow. Her birthday party's tomorrow. It'll be
Are
fine.
you doing the teeny birthday party where they all come over and hang out in the backyard and squeak and make slime?
Well, she's actually kind of past slime. She was way into the slime for a while, but that's kind of disappeared, which I'm fine with.
Don't say it out loud. She'll
But-
hear you change.
Yeah, but she's always been the sleepover queen. I mean, she started going on sleepovers when she was like 6 or 7. So she's got like 6 of her friends coming over for a sleepover. We're gonna go to Flatbreads for pizza. She's past the point where she really like needs a themed party or we have to really plan anything.
Yeah.
She's just happy to have her friends come over and they all go on their phones and do whatever they do anyway. So,
My son turned 12 today, so
oh wow.
I'm taking him fishing on Sunday with